Well, good afternoon, Boulder. Fabulous city that it is.
Let's be proud
Festival
to be
of
here.
Ideas. I suggest, unlike
and I just
anything
feel
else in
that
America, this
it's
is
about
quite the revolution for
it's more about
literary
allowing
ideas,
people
I think.
to exist
all over the world, and
the
free and
more,
accessible
I
to
write a lot of
everyone,
mythology, and for me,
rich
the
with
whole idea
words
is the
and
more you are in
ideas.
touch with the
And
divine,
the point about it
the
is
more
that I see it,
you allow people
audience
to be whatever they want to be.
every bit as important
I think
as it can.
our inability
So please
to
do
do that,
not
our
wait for
inability
questions
to allow
from us.
people
If
to
you're
be what they
busting
want to be
to say something, I'll see
reflects
and
our
I will ask
inability
you
to
to
love.
make a point. And our panel has very
and I think
graciously agreed to
that's what I
So
take
we'll
with this
begin.
word. So it's just the
I am not
choice
crazy
of words. I
enough to
understand
try
where
and
it comes
sum
from.
up
So when I
these
talk
three
about
forces of
pride
nature
and
on the
queer
stage.
pride and all my
So I'm going to ask
all
them
my
to do
sessions in
that.
India.
So we will begin.
I need someone.
Which one
in
of you
India, if
lovely
you don't talk
people
about the
would like to
gods
begin?
and connect it with the gods, it doesn't get the kind of and therefore the slides. I wanted to do
Charles
this. I mean, this was a last minute decision
Rice-González.
because you have to see it. Only when you see it will you know what I'm talking about. So I will just show you the images and imagine a culture which created these images.
I know they don't read the program.
Can I just say,
but anyway, I
can
was born in Puerto
say
Rico,
that
raised in the Bronx.
looking at a half
and,
of God,
the work I tend to do is
largely told
queer
that God is
LGBT
white
writing, and so I've been asked,
this
are
is
you
a
worried
very
about being
empowering
pigeonholed
image.
as a gay writer?
But why
And as
does
James Baldwin
gender
said,
have to be
was asked, how
part
does
of
did he feel he was
deities?
at a
Or
disadvantage
why does it have to be
growing
part
up poor,
of
black, and
literature?
gay?
Explain
He
the
said,
whole
no, I thought I hit the jackpot.
spirituality, deity.
And so,
it's
so I feel that as well.
form and
But more
formlessness,
seriously,
if you
you know,
will.
when you think of this panel about LGBT
Divinity is at one level is seen as
and the
formless,
title is Pride and Prejudice,
but you cannot
off of Jane Austen
formless is something
novel
like meaning.
that was
Let's
published
look
in
at the word
1813.
meaning and
Fast forward
sound.
100 years.
So you
and
are
then,
able to
Ian
understand
Forster
me
does Morris,
at this
Rice-Gonzalez
moment because
in
the thoughts in my
1913,
head
14.
are being
But it doesn't get published
transmitted
in
through the
1971,
sound I am
right? We
making
know Ian
using my
Forster
vocal
passed to India
cords.
and Howard
The
Zinn
sound,
and
when
things,
decoded
but
by
his
your
queer
brain, you
novel
hear the
about,
meaning.
Two same-sex,
So there is
a same-sex
formless
couple,
meaning
doesn't get published again
and
until
form that is
1971 after his
sound.
death. And
So we
depending on who you're
communicate
talking
through
to, it was
forms,
his
but that's not
stipulation. He
important.
said, I
What
didn't
is
feel that the word
important
being
is
read it, so,
within the
we never
vessel
saw
of
it
form
come to
is the
be published,
formless
but,
idea.
But that, so there's that.
And
But
so
then
what you
think of
see
the
in front
50s
of
and
you
60s, and many
is
writers,
a
Truman
form.
Capote, James Baldwin, Gore
And you
Vidal,
see a
who
form
owned
of
his
a
city,
god
Napoleon,
who
came
is
out
half
in
a
the
woman.
50s, was banned in a sense from
And
the critics.
what
They
is
would
it
not review
trying
it.
to
And then he was
communicate?
banned for 6 years. Then
And is
moved
that-
to
if that's the question you
60s,
have
and
to
we have
ask.
John Ritchie with City of Light. And
The
we have,
deity, the divinity is shown
Gore
as
Vidal,
half
Christopher Isham
a
was a single
woman.
man. And if you know the
And there are
plots of
many
those
stories
stories,
about it. In fact, there
they
is
don't end
one
well,
devotee
right?
who says that I will
Then
only
you
go around
move
God, I
on to
will
the
not
Violet
go around the
Code in
goddess.
1980, 81, and those are
And he
7 or 8
tries to,
writers
can
who,
keep the previous slide.
got together and started to say we're going to work together
So,
and get published, and they broke a lot
He
of
tries to
barriers
go and try to
audience.
split the two, and he's not allowed to. He's
critics,
cursed. Is that if you see one without the other, but the moment you have form,
this swath of queer
the
history,
moment God is given a
at least
form,
from
gender
US
comes into
review,
play. So
there was
which
a
gender
lot
would
of
you like
writers
to
who were
address
really
God
white,
as?
and they were
He
also,
or she?
the
But not
stories
every
sometimes
creature
didn't
is
have
he
happy
and
endings.
she. There can be
They
something
were
else
all
beside he or
required
she. Is
because
it
there was a
both
stipulation they
or
had to
neither?
end these that are,
And therefore
punished
form
queers.
brings
So,
in limitations.
So then
How do
I
you
come,
explain
right? And I grew
a
up reading
limitless
these books and
idea
looking for myself
using a
inside of
limited
them.
form?
And I realized that this canon.
So the
that we
idea is
in terms of
limitless.
literature,
Divinity
because
has
literature
no
also tells stories of
limitations.
culture,
It's infinite.
That was an incomplete story.
How do you
right? The
explain
story was
infinity
incomplete without all
using
the other
something
voices
finite
that were
like
happening,
gender?
without the other gay experiences.
This is one
happening
of the many
inside the United
forms.
States at the
So
very
in
least
one
of this
form,
day.
the God
You know, here
embraces
is
the
where
goddess
we are in
so
this
tightly
perspective from
that they
which I
become
write.
one.
So as a person,
So that's one image. So
a
imagine
queer
growing
person,
up with
I
this
decided
image.
that I wanted to write that. So
You
I'll share a little
assume
bit
culture like
of
this
a
should
novel
be
that I wrote called
comfortable
Prejudice,
with
about a young
gender
Latina
diversity.
coming out.
But
Yes.
there is struggle, as I said.
so
Transsexuality
then I'll
is
read later.
relatively more accepted because you've
Charles
it's visible.
Rice-Gonzalez,
Homosexuality is not so because it's not visible. It is something that happens in the bedroom. Homosexuality talks about pleasure, which is uncomfortable to the monastic orders. The monastic orders don't like any form of pleasure. So the earliest homophobic writings really come from Buddhist
playwright and a
literature.
filmmaker. Can you hear okay?
So the Buddha who gave up
And,
desire did not like any
playwright
form
and a
of
filmmaker and a
desire,
screenwriter.
including
I
homosexual
grew up
desire.
in Boulder.
So the Pandakas were
spent
kept out of the
25 years in
monastery.
New York City.
So we
And,
see this
it's
monastic
such a-
rejection. It's
such
not
a
rejection of sexuality
mind-bending
as much as rejection
experience
of
to be
desire.
here and to get to do this.
All desire is
because
bad. But here comes an
I'm
alternate
allowed to
tradition. It
come
says
as me.
all desires good,
And-
all forms.
Yes, thank you. We should all be allowed to come as ourselves.
This shows Krishna and Radha, the
I'm
lovers, they
58,
make
so
love,
that
and
meant
she
I grew
says
up,
to him,
you know,
do you know how I feel?
when
And she said, I'll never be you and you'll never be
still
me.
a
You'll never
mental
have a male
illness
body, you'll never have,
legally.
I'll never have a female
And
body. But
there
let's
was a lot
exchange
of
each other's clothes
coercion
and
to
figure
try
out
to
what
get
it means
me
to be a
to be
man and
more
a woman.
gender appropriate.
And therefore this is
Which
called, it's a
I
very
didn't
famous,
know
and
what
this is
that was
folk
at the
poetry.
time. I
This
just
is not
thought it
high
was,
classical Sanskrit poetry. It's
signals
local
that there was
poetry,
something
where
seriously inherently
the
wrong
Lord
with me.
dresses up as a woman and the
So
and his
it's
consort
so
dresses up as a
healing
man.
that time has come around.
And then they
where
figure out that no matter how
I'm
many times I
now
change clothes, I really
invited
don't
to come
feel what it
and
means to be
speak
you, and they have a
as
quarrel
just
about
that
it.
which was.
And it's
so
a love
inherently
play
wrong.
through which you
Do you guys
experience
share
a
that
cross-gender
experience?
idea, cross-dressing idea.
Are
Again, part
there
of
also
tradition.
people in the audience that
And the
share
next
that
slide,
experience,
please.
whether
Sorry,
you're
I'm going to
gay
have
or
to
straight?
cut you off
The
because
experience
it might
of
take longer than
coming
that.
out
I
of
need to
shame
hear
and having
from
it evolved
Commander
into
Jane.
something
Because
most
you
precious
have
in your
mythical
life.
characters. You have your whole.
In some ways,
aspect
it
of
still continues. For
alternative
me, I can
representation.
speak
Perhaps
from the
you could
perspective of
talk
a
about
playwright
those images.
who spent 25 years in New York and went from
Explain
acting to
how you
writing
react, having been
to
a
create
great
strong roles for
creature
women and more
yourself.
human roles for
I
men.
did all
Because
this
I
work
thought
to
they
get
just weren't being
myself
written.
top
And
of
the
the
white
Google
sun
list
and
and my
women will-
website visible.
lesbians will have
And
more
then this
visibility.
game,
And I
Mass
had
Effect,
no idea that
this
that
video
was
game
incredibly
named
subversive.
their main character
And that
Commander
no
Jay
commercial
Shepard.
producer was going to test
And
that
I
with
was
a
like,
tape
I
full.
searched way down
And they
on
weren't going to
YouTube
say,
and
I'm not doing
and
any
Google, and
plays
now
about
there's
lesbians.
4,000 entries
They were
about
just gonna be
Commander Jay
invisible to the
Shepard.
world.
Who's an animated character. These are
Just this week,
these
I
are
will
just
share
blowing
with you
away.
the
Can you
three
imagine
short plays that
us
I
in our
wrote
mythology in America
23
getting
years
to see
ago
Clint Eastwood and
have
Julia
just
Roberts
opened off
change
Broadway
clothes
this week.
so they can understand. But it did take 23 years. But address the idea of what he's showing with this. A half
Anyway,
woman.
I just wanted to share
shouldn't
that
we
it's
address that as
very
a half
healing
man?
to be
How
here.
did it become
Thank
as a
you.
half woman?
Thanks for coming.
Jane Shepard. Many of you will know
got me stunned.
what Kick-Ass plays
Say
women.
that again.
The first, this is a half woman god.
Right.
Surely it's a half man. Devdutt Pattanaik. Please go ahead. No?
I think
I
it
come from a
speaks to
land
the
where if two
position,
men hold
right?
hands
And
in
the
the street, it's
visibility
perfectly
that
fine.
that we talk
But if a
about,
man and
right?
woman hold
And
hands, it's
the kind of
considered
with the
rude
word
and vulgar.
heteronormative,
Yeah.
those are kind of the default places.
But we have a
So I
problem
think when you
with
see half,
queer
when I see
issues,
this, that's what I hear,
until
right? And so.
There's a
I
section
think
old
at the very
colonial
least there's
law
an
which still,
attempt to
there in
kind of
India.
switch that model
It's called the
around.
IPC
And that's
377,
one of the
which
things that
makes,
LGBT
it's called the sodomy
stories,
laws. It's a very
literature,
old law and it's just
images, art,
carried on in Indian constitution.
And
Nobody
what
knows
about in the
how it
Bronx
came,
Theatre,
it's just
the
there.
company that you
And everybody thought it would be
set up and
overturned.
run? I mean,
And
how does that
very
express
surprisingly
itself? Are
and
you able to get that
shockingly to
across?
everyone's concern, because
it's
nobody
like,
assumed
that's
that
one of the
anybody would
foundational
block it.
things. I mean, there's a ton of studies
People
that have
did
been
block
done
it in the Supreme
about
Court,
the
and
idea
it
of
took
self-value,
everyone by
we see
surprise, and
ourselves,
everybody knows it was one
portrayed
judge's
positively,
prejudice.
our
In fact, it's
culture,
now being
popular
repealed
media,
because
that
the general
we-
mood is,
we
I mean,
feel-
what's the big
we
deal?
develop a sense of self-value, right? And
Except for
in
extremely
developing
small
self-value,
minorities
there must
who
be
think this is a
something
terrible
that
thing.
does
That's-
not feel valued.
it'll always be there.
Devalued, and as queer people,
Like
we
that
felt
little
devalued
nut
a lot
that when
in our
you're eating,
societies and our
a
communities
softening, something
and in our homes.
hits
So to
you.
see
There'll always
yourselves
be people who will
in
not be
art,
comfortable
in
with these
culture,
things.
out on
But they're a
those
very
stages
small
of Bad
minority.
and Bronx,
And hopefully the laws will change.
positively
But I write
is,
on
at least
mythology.
for
My
those
work
who
is
are
on
pursuing
mythology.
it.
I write on
And,
stories,
is that we
symbols, and
engage people
rituals
that come to
of
Bad,
Indian traditions
so that
and,
people see a larger
and how it
representation.
influences human
And again, it's
culture.
completing that story
So when
of
this
what
thing
we
happened, and I suddenly started reading papers
What
where
was
people said it's
expressing
not
clumsily?
part of
I
Indian
mean,
culture.
I think what
I was quite surprised. I
trying
said,
Jane, you make
obviously
a
these
point
people are
about
not very
gender
well read.
fluidity. So the
Because
fact
if you
that it
had
says
read
a
the
half
culture,
woman,
you would have
to some
experienced the
people that
culture,
suggests
you know
that
that
women
queer
are half
traditions
women.
are part of Indian
With
traditions.
the fact that it's
They're not in the
identified in
mainstream
any
because they are
proportion
small.
is not gender
So
fluidity, is
about
it?
me, I grew up in Mumbai all my life. I trained in medicine. I'm using an English word because my passion of mythology accessible over here, but if you read it in Sanskrit, it doesn't sound like that. So it is the gods all in mythology, but in this story, one specific book which it has to be seen in context, and I'll have to go too much in detail. Tell you. And then the stories that people don't know about the whole idea is that queer stories, in India, divinity is expressed in masculine and feminine terms. They don't tell you. But there is a novel called The Pregnant King, which is a story from the great epic in India, which talks about a king who accidentally becomes pregnant. And I decided And I decided
So
to
just
go
plants,
through
there's
male
male
plants,
studies
female
right
plants,
now,
the queer
everybody
plants.
wants to know about
There is
these
a
books.
continuous,
But that's a novel,
third.
it's
And
like
there are
a
many
creative
words
license
for
as
the
well.
while the Shikhandi book, which I
That's what I was getting
here,
at, because it does actually
just
say
tells
that.
the stories of the queer stories where gods cross-dress,
So
gods
how
become
can
goddess,
you
goddess becomes
translate
god,
that?
men become
How
women,
could
women
Jane
become men.
take that
Like the waxing and waning
back
of the
to her
moon.
work? Charles, how could
It's
you
no big
write
deal.
this? Because this
And
is
I
a-
sometimes
this is a
wonder,
very
in a
dynamic
land where such
idea,
stories were
perhaps,
told, where did prejudice come
places
from?
outside that
And,
mythology
so
need
that's
to
my
embrace wholeheartedly. Thank you very much. Good, that's splendid beginning. And if you haven't seen his TED Talk, I highly recommend it on East meets West and myths. Very, very illuminating. Now, my first question to you all three.
One of the things I'll say is that
This is people,
being around a lot
Pride
of young
and
people
Prejudice.
who come to
Jane
work
Austen
and
has already
experience
been
it,
mentioned.
they're
That is a
leading.
Western
They're leading that
kind.
discussion.
That
idea
is
of gender
something that
fluidity,
is
that
from
idea of
history.
sexual fluidity.
It's been
Like I'm old
imposed
school, like I'm
not
gay,
in a
I'm
bad
gay,
way.
you know.
But I'm wondering how you
but
feel
young
about
people
that.
are like,
I mean,
yeah,
Jane
I
Austen,
am, and then I'm
quite
this, and
sure
I'm
would
that.
be
So not that they're
thrilled
all
if
like that, but there's a
used to
more
be at
vocal
Boulder,
presence.
Jaipur
So this kind of
Literature Festival.
expansiveness,
But what
I think
is your
being
reaction in the
experienced,
first
that young
place
people
to
are
the title
experiencing that
of
in
this
their
talk?
lives, in their
Jane.
talk, the way they talk to each other.
Seems like a great
There's whole,
title, covers the whole
gender
scope.
nonconforming. That is
How do you interpret
like a
it?
term that that
How
is
do I
used as
interpret
gender
it?
Yes.
nonconforming, so
Well,
that there's this fluidity
we
in how they're
now
representing
have
themselves.
the
And
full
so I
scope in
think
the United
it's
States,
there,
at
I think,
least,
in the young
of
people
pride,
who are
people who are living
Can
in
I ask
pride,
again, because Jane
and we are
talks about
still
cost of oppression.
fighting prejudice.
Both of the but you said that prejudice may have gone underground in America while gay men have had presence you were seeing amongst young people. Parity for lesbians is far behind.
Oh, yeah.
Can you amplify that a little for me?
Well, in terms of theater, there, I
Yeah,
mean,
well then it starts creating the
Tennessee
generational
Williams
divide
is,
as well, right?
has
Because
been
even
known for
those of us
years,
who are
although he
older,
wasn't an
we,
outrider.
you know, are trying
There
to wrap our
certainly have
heads
been a
around
lot of
that.
gay men
But
working
then-
in the
but then
theater,
don't leave
and
this out. There's parents, right, who are the parents of these children.
lesbians
And they
in
too
lead
are
or
coming-
central
are coming
roles
to these
or
conversations,
as a
performances,
subject
and they too are trying to create
have
that
continued to be
So,
pretty much invisible up until
it
Funhouse,
does create that. There's
which
clearly
was
oppression. I
produced this
remember
past
one,
year, but
I was
that's kind
watching,
of one.
switching plans, watching a report on CNN about a parent and a daughter. And
women's
the daughter wanted
work
to change her gender. She was 14 and the mother was
and
absolutely
lesbian
not.
work
You know,
is
this-
still
but these are the
assumed
conversations
to,
that are happening right now.
in
So
theater,
maybe
I think, to be
kind of
less
indie culture,
universal.
There may have been this, there is this
Statistically,
idea of
it's
more
not less
expansiveness,
marketable,
But I think here
but,
we're just starting to catch up.
Like the Denver Center is producing beautiful things. They have a new plays program. I still know some folks there from when I was in their acting company.
Yeah, so this is just to
But
make
I have
people
sent
aware
them
that
3
the
scripts
fact is
now.
fluidity is frightening because it is
They have
uncertain.
not responded,
You
they
don't
are
know
not
where you
interested,
belong. You don't know how to
the
deal
work
with
just
person.
goes there and
Our
disappears.
human
And
mind
I think probably
prefers order,
if a
structure,
man had
so
come back to
Excel
Boulder
sheets
after
are
25
delightful.
years, having won many
But the
awards
thing
and
is,
working
and
professionally
that's
in
where
the
the problem
theater
comes. So
and
while the philosophy
and
will always talk
film,
about fluidity, the day-to-day
probably
living
wouldn't be something that just
has
somehow
rules,
magically
and that's
fell
where the
through the
problem
cracks.
starts. So people who
Before we
are,
go to
so in India,
reading
the
from
whole
Charles
thing is about
and some
marriage.
slides
It's not so much about
I'd
sexuality.
like to ask
So
you
the
the
boy
same
comes up
thing,
and says, "I'm
Charles.
gay, it's fine."
You
Mother
talk
says,
about
"How is
how
that stopping you from
LGBT
getting married?"
literature in the US has served
Marriage is
markers
important. What you do
for
outside, I don't want to
progression, queer rights
know.
movements.
So they will
And
entertain the
also
boyfriend in the
talk
house
about
and
the
talk to both of them.
contributions
Why
of
don't you
queer,
get married?
Latino, and writers of
Or
color
if a lesbian
to give a
couple
broader
is, I know so many
picture of
people
life for
who
the
are lesbians, they are
LGBT
out, they're with their
experience in the
families,
US.
and I go to their
Discuss
house
that
and the
with
mother
me in
says,
the
very
context
nice,
of
she's also a
Pride and
nice girl, but
Prejudice
they should get
and
married, no?
contribution to
And they don't mean to each other.
festival of ideas.
Marriage to men to produce children,
I think,
they have no
when
problem.
I
Here
talk
there's the
about
lesbian and the lover
about
sitting,
this,
and everybody's talking,
particular
we are
topic.
exchanging glances.
And
I
so
said, I
maybe
know
think
you're all
about this
Western
whole
educated
kind of
people, you know. But
And,
in our culture, we have marriage is important. See, they have no problem with the
here we
lesbian
are in
relationship.
2016
The
having
problem
this
is they're not
discussion,
getting
right?
married.
And I'm going to
let
be in
me
another
ask you,
panel talking
because,
about more
I mean,
queerness
what
in the
you're
next
saying
one.
also is you
But it's
point out
sometimes
Abrahamic
on the
mythology,
onus of queer
which is
writers
based
to
on
bring
judgment
these
day,
ideas
is
up and
alien
bring them
to
forward.
Indic
So I
mythology.
think
Yet you tell
in
me
terms of
that
like the ideas
Indian
of markers,
rituals of
when you read the
marriage
stories now, a lot of the stories, particularly by young
uh,
people that are writing now, they
much
write from a completely
stronger
hopeful,
ideas
completely
for
different place. We're talking
Abrahamic
about,
mythology,
you know, I
which is
agree in
that
terms of
what
Sarah Schulman
fundamentally
has
they're doing
talked
for
a lot about
societal
how women, particularly
pressures.
lesbians, are left
What
out
can
of
be
theater.
done about
But there's a whole
Very good.
transgender movement that now societally
I mean,
becoming
things change
more
over time.
smarter about
And
and
nothing,
learning more about,
I
and
don't
those
think
voices are
anything
coming
needs to be
through
done. I
in
think
literature
awareness
as well to bring
automatically
those
changes things.
experiences.
So long as you get
I think
more
in
and more
terms of
aware of
markers,
things,
it's always like
people's
if you read
ideas
the
also
literature, you
shift.
get a sense of what's happening
We
at the time,
do not
right? But also
respect
there's
people's
also
ability to
currently
love.
forward thinking.
I think everybody does. It just takes time. Some people take several generations. I come from a culture where you live for many lives. There's no hurry.
But also
But what about oppression? Oppression,
there is, so for example, in India, if you're a Hijra,
we're going to see
transgender, traditional transgender, they are marginalized communities.
You
they exist, but they're
how
marginalized, they're not mainstream.
mythology.
Although they have one,
contemporary
recently
politics
there was,
is
you must have heard of the Kumbh Mela, the large gatherings of sages.
homosexuality.
So one of the
Quite the opposite
transgender,
mythology.
very political, she
And
said,
we'll
I'm
see
going to
the
start a
sides, but
transgender
in the context of
monastic
Pride and
order.
Prejudice, and given
And
what
that's like a
Jane
very
Charles
funny
has
thing.
said, could you develop
But-
your ideas in relation to their
Because I know the
comments,
person, I'm like, monastic
you see,
order, there is prejudice everywhere. But it was so successful. Millions of people, they just gathered to take their blessings. I'm a little uncomfortable in India. The government of India provides the toilets, Indian languages, so there is no issues of toilets, transgender toilets.
Manifestation.
And she's dressed in her finery and ordinary
But I know what
is
it
falling
means
at their
because
feet and
unfortunately in India the word pride is used by the right
manifestations of the divine.
a lot in a very
So the court, Supreme Court, with all its educated lawyers, finds it difficult to handle this.
Be proud to
The
be
average guy doesn't.
proud to be this.
So
And
you
I
find
just
these
feel that,
dichotomy,
it's
so
about,
you just have to search for these keywords. And
it's
what
more about
to mean.
allowing
But these things
people
also
to,
happen. So they
exist.
coexist in the
I think,
country. So as I said, you have the
the
lesbian
more,
part.
I mean, I write in
discussing why
discussing
you get
for
married
me,
to
the
men.
whole idea is the more you are in touch
Which
with
is
the
like
divine,
incredible.
the more
And you have
you
transgender
allow people
hadas
to
when
be
people are
whatever
falling
they
in love
want
with
to
these
be.
manifestations of the divine.
I think
But
our
they do not get a job
inability
in
to
any
do that,
corporate.
our inability to allow people to be what they want to be, reflects our inability to
Why don't
love.
you move together and marry women?
And I think
Charles, could we
that's
hear
what
the
I
Dr.
take
Eaton now?
these words.
It's
It's just
probably
the
a
choice
good
of words. I
point.
understand where it
Yeah,
comes
just a
from.
little
So
bit of
I
And I just want to say
don't
one little
pride
tiny
and,
thing about
queer
oppression.
pride
You
and
guys
all
said,
my
what about
time
oppression?
called for a lot of sessions
And,
in India because
you know,
need
it's
someone
covert.
in India, if you don't talk about the gods and connect it with the gods, it doesn't get
Talking
the kind of
about
appeal.
and therefore the slides. I wanted to do this. I mean, this was the last minute decision.
And I think
because
of being here in
you
the United
see
States,
it.
we get
Only when you see it
like I
will
grew
you
up
know what
also,
I'm
part
talking
of a little
about.
tiny piece of my life
So
is being
I will just show you the images and imagine a culture which created these images.
And I always remember the
And
idea
Can I
of
just
like,
say that? Can I just say that
I hate
looking
the
at
sin,
a
not the
half
sinner,
from God,
right? And so
for
that always like
people
messed with my head because I was like, how can you
God is a
separate
white man
the two?
with a
I'm like
beard,
one person.
no-
So that
this is a
that's
very
another way I
empowering
felt
image.
oppressive.
But
And so
why
the part of
does
me
gender
that I
have
wanted
to
to
be
embrace was
part
trying to get to know how to be
of
oppressed.
deities?
So
Or why does it have
I'm
to
gonna
be
read
part
just a
of
little bit.
literature?
So
Explain the whole
that's my little
spirituality,
intro
deity
about
aspect.
queer history,
It's
writing all
about
that stuff.
form
But one
and
of the ways to kind of
formlessness. So
do
if
it
you,
is I like writing about like
divinity
my
is at
community,
one
I like
level is
writing
seen
about
as
philosophy, writing
formless,
about queerness, about
but
Latinos.
you
I think
cannot
in terms of
formless
adding that,
is something
but it's
like
also
meaning.
letting people into
Let's
the
look at the
story.
word
So have people
meaning
been to
and
the Bronx
sound.
here? Any people been to the Bronx?
So
Okay.
you
good,
are able
like
to
maybe 20,
understand
30
me
people been to the
at
Bronx.
this moment
The rest of you
because
can come along
the thoughts in
this
my
book
head
to the Bronx.
are being transmitted
Also
through the
into- it's not only
sound
the-
I am
the
making
borough,
using
but
my
also, like,
vocal
culture,
cords.
into people,
The sound, when
language,
decoded by
into
our
what it
brain,
looks like.
you
So I'm gonna
hear
read
the meaning.
just a little bit of it.
So there is
Chalice a book about a
formless
16-year-old,
meaning
kind of a tough kid.
and form
He's a
that is
thug,
sound.
that
So
kind
we
of
communicate
baseball
through
cap.
forms, but that's not
then
important.
he
What is
goes, okay,
important
he falls
is
in love
within
with
the
some
vessel of
another young man
form
in
is the
his
formless
college.
idea.
So I'm going to read you a tiny little moment.
And so what you see in
they-
front of
they-
you
they
is
kind of
a
Get
form.
away from the neighborhood, from the Hunts Point.
And you see a
neighborhood,
form
and
of
they go
a
to another
god
part of the
who
Bronx.
is half of
When
a
Chilito arrived at Poe Park in the northwest
And
Bronx, the
what
setting
is
sun
it trying
was
to
putting up a fight
communicate?
with the final bright rays of
And that's the
hot
question
light.
we have to ask.
Everything was orange. The majestic
The
oak
deity,
trees,
the
young
divinity
guys
is
breakdancing
shown
on
as
benches,
half
the
a
gazebo,
woman.
the Art Deco buildings.
And there are many stories about it. In fact, there is one devotee who says that I will only go around God, I will not go around the goddess.
Carlos sat there,
And he
blazing
tries
bright
to-
creamy
can you
orange
keep the
as he
police
sat on the bench, chin resting on his left knee. He
So,
was reading a book, eating an apple.
He tries to
and the air
go
had
and try to
fallen
split
into
the
his
two,
face.
and he's not allowed to.
Chilito
He's
watched for a
cursed.
moment,
Is
and
that
then
if you
his
see
friend
one without the
Carlos
other, but the
looked
moment
up.
that you have
Chilito
form,
waved, yo, what's up?
the moment God is given a
Patiently, Carlos
form,
smiled,
gender comes into
closed his
play.
book,
So
took one
which
last
gender
bite of
would
the
you like
apple,
to address
before
God
tossing it
as?
into the garbage
He
can.
or
They
she?
have a little exchange,
But
then
not
takes
every
me
creature is
inside
he
every
and
night
she.
of
There
his
can be
college.
something else beside he and she. Is it
And then when he just takes
both
it
or
back
neither?
inside there.
And therefore,
So,
form brings in limitations.
Carlos walked over, he
So
goes and
how
checks
do you
out
explain
the
a
cottage,
limitless
and
idea
looks at
using a
things, and then he
limited
walks
form?
over, to a window.
So the
Carlos
idea
walked
is
over to a
limitless.
ornate
Divinity
floor
has
lamp and
no
pulled the cord. The dim light it gave
limitations.
was no
It's
match to the
infinity.
setting sun. There was
How
fire.
do you explain
Carlos
infinity
went to his
using
window.
something
The pattern of the
finite,
lace curtain
like
to
gender.
as if his face were tattooed.
This is one of the many
Chulito smiled at the
forms.
thought of
So
Carlos
in one
being
form, the
colored
god
to
embraces
any
the
kind of
goddess
politics.
so tightly
he's
that they
smiling.
become one.
Nothing, well.
And that's
you,
one
the
image.
person
So
who
imagine
got
growing
colored,
up with this
he said,
image.
trailing off, enjoying his presence.
You assume culture like this should be
Check
comfortable
out that
with
sun.
gender
It's all
diversity.
gone. Chulito walked over and stood by him.
There is struggle, as I said. Transsexuality in India is
Already
relatively more
popular,
accepted
rise
because
about 20
it's
degrees.
visible.
Carlos turned his head
Homosexuality is
They were
not
about
so
2
because it's
inches
not
away.
visible. It is something that
Chulito
happens
imagined
in the
himself jumping
bedroom.
back saying, "Yo,
Homosexuality
you're
talks
invading
about
my space,
pleasure,
bro."
which is
But instead,
uncomfortable
he
to the
stood
monastic orders.
staring into
The
Carlos'
monastic
eyes,
orders don't like
the
any
heat of
form
the
of
sun,
pleasure.
The heat of the room. and
So the
heat of
earliest
his body.
homophobic writings
Thanks to
really
Chulito,
come from Buddhist
I thought
literature.
you'd like it. I love
So
it.
the Buddha who gave up
Chulito
desire
felt he should
did not
be
like
turning
any
away
form
from
of
it,
desire,
but he didn't.
including
He should be
homosexual
putting
desire.
on
So the
brakes
Pandakas
because
were kept
he
out
was
of the
heading,
monastery.
But he didn't.
So
He
we
should
see
be
this
doing
is the
a lot of
monastic
things
rejection.
instead.
It's not rejection of
Lean forward,
sexuality as much as
close,
rejection of
gap the space
desire.
between them, and their lips met.
All desire
They
is
kissed
bad.
gently at first.
But here
Almost
comes
as
an
if they
alternate
were
tradition which says
accidentally
all
bumping
desire
into
is
each other.
good, all
Then the
form
small
is
kisses
good.
grew
Can I see the
longer.
next
Carlos slipped
slide,
his
please?
tongue into Chulito's mouth.
This shows
Their
Krishna
tongues
and
swirled
Radha,
slowly one
the
over
lovers,
other.
they're making
Chulito
love,
could
and
taste
she
the
says to
apple
him,
Carlos had been eating
"Do you
earlier.
know how I
It was the
feel?"
sweetest taste.
And she said, I'll never be you and you'll never be me. You'll never have a male body. I'll never have a female body.
We could leave
But
it
let's
there,
exchange
right?
each other's
Tasting
clothes
an
and figure out
apple
what
on
it
a
is.
And
And therefore this is called, it's a
But
very
I just
famous,
want
and
to
this
share
is
some
folk
of this
poetry.
kind of
This is
hear
not
some of the
high classical
language
Sanskrit
come
poetry.
into the
It's
Bronx.
local poetry,
And also
where
one of the elements
the Lord
of,
dresses up as a
I think,
woman,
James said, and also Devdutt said,
and his
you know, at the
consort
base of
dresses
all
up
this
as a
is
man.
love, right? So that's
And then
what
they
it's
figure out that no matter how many times I change clothes, I really don't feel that it needs to be you, and they have a quarrel about it. And it's a love play through which you experience a cross-gender, cross-dressing idea. Again, part of tradition. And the next slide, please.
Sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off because it might take for writing. I need to hear from Commander lesbians. No one objected to it because you have producers simply invisible your whole my work. I'm going to ask all three of you this. Alternative representation. To what extent perhaps you could, you know, have these images? I hope Devdutt gets the other two, but explain how time has not having been an invisible creature yourself. It's what James
I know this will work to get myself to the top of the Google list and set my website visible. And then this game, Mass Effect, this video game, named their main character Commander Shepard. And I was like, I sunk way down on YouTube and Google, and now there's 4,000 entries about Commander Shepard.
Yeah.
Who's an animated character. These are just blow me away. Can you imagine us in our mythology in America getting to see Clint Eastwood and Julia Roberts change clothes so they can understand one another?
We're in the ghetto.
It was like the ghetto, the girl Grant ghetto.
But address the idea of what he's showing.
Our
us,
plays
a
were
half
shot
woman. I
and our
mean,
plays
shouldn't
were
we address
red
that as a half
and,
man? How did it become as a half woman?
Gay and that one's got me stunned. Say that again.
This is a half
that
woman
made theaters
god.
look good because they could
Surely
say
it's
on
a
their
half
grant
man.
applications, yes, we workshopped and read these minorities.
It speaks to the position,
and we looked
right?
good, and
the
then when they were ready
visibility
to
that we
produce,
talk about, right?
it was
and
the
the
same
kind
old
of the word
traditional word.
heteronormative. Those are kind of the default places. So I think
it
when
was
you
just
see
really
when I
tricky
see
to
this,
see
that's what I
because
mean.
nobody was talking
Right, and
about
so
and it's
I think
just
at
beginning to be
the very
talked
least
about
there's an attempt
in New York,
to kind of switch that model around, and that's
that there's
one
not
of the
much
things that
presence
LGBT
of women or
stories,
lesbians on
literature,
Broadway,
images,
off
art,
Broadway.
put forth.
And what about in the Bronx Theatre and the company that you
So it took years
set
to
up
get
and run?
anybody to sort
How
of
does that express
legitimize
itself? Are you able to get
my
that across?
experience.
Oh,
my-
I mean, it's like
it
that's
was
one
sort
the
of like
foundational
looking at a
things. There's ton of
painting
studies that have been
and
done
having to
about
judge
the idea
work
of
to
self-value
understand the
when we see
painting by
ourselves,
looking at the empty
portrayed
space
positively
rather
in art,
than
culture,
where the
media,
paint was.
that
And the
we
paint
feel we
was
develop a sense of
white
self-value,
men's work,
right? And if you're
and
developing
mine
self-value,
must be the
there
empty
must be
space.
something that does
Doesn't
not
win
feel
grants and
valued,
awards
feel
and
devalued.
workshops.
As queer people, we have felt
But no one
devalued
says
in
that's
our societies,
fantastic.
our
Let's
communities,
take it to
in
production.
our homes. So to
The
see
experience
yourself
was much more common
in
to
art,
say
in culture,
wonderful
on our
play.
stages of the Bad and Bronx.
I wish you the best of
portrayed
luck with it.
positively
It's not
is,
something our theater
at least
can
for
produce.
those who are consuming
Thank you, Jane.
and it's
Devdutt.
not only gay people that come to
Being
bat,
invisible.
so that people see a larger representation.
Honestly, I've not
But again, it's
experienced
completely
that
story
because,
of who we are as people.
because I write on mythology,
But it's expressing
I'm aware
clumsily.
of prejudice,
I mean,
I'm aware,
I
but
think trying Jane, you make the point about gender fluidity.
I have not experienced it.
So the fact
In
that
India,
it says a
the
half
prejudice
woman
is more in the
to
private
some
space
people
than in
that
the public
suggests
space.
that women are half
So
women.
in the public space, everybody
The
does
fact
the
that
right
it's
thing.
identified in
In the
any
private space, the
proportion at
problems will
all
start.
is not
So
gender
in a
fluidity,
job
isn't it?
situation, in a family situation, the tragedy is if you're born in a very I'm using an English word because to make it queer is horrifying here, because you read it in Sanskrit, your inheritance will be affected. So those kind of things will happen. So I have friends who are gods. I mean, very, very privileged, even by American standards. It has to be seen in context. They are like, we cannot detail. And then no chance I'm going to get my the whole idea is that in India divinity is expressed and the wife and the woman in masculine and feminine so terms. That's the private space, but constant reference to the queer. So even when the rocks are classified, they will say the male rock, the female rock, so commerce wins. So everything is classified. Plants, there is male plants, female plants, and the queer plant. There is a continuous acknowledgement of the third, and there are many words for the third. So
That's what I was
good.
getting at, because it does actually say thank you, Devdutt. Charles, you also, in this question, how can you translate that? Because you talk about how LGBT literally applies to her work. Charles, how could you apply it with Russian? This is a very dynamic idea. And you talk about places outside, how they give that the whole contribution to queer race and writers of colour, give a broader picture. Jane, how can you apply that idea to your work? Not even admitting oppression is a possibility, is that right?
Well, I'm going to answer the invisible question, right? So, one of the things one of the ways, being around once I went to a panel on working experience talking about the title was "Where's the lesbian that discussion?" Right? Because that idea of gender fluidity, that idea of sexual fluidity, like I'm old things that we talked about is maybe it was right, but it just but. So that's what people are like, yeah, I am, and then I'm this, and I'm that. So not that they're all like that, but say we need to get published by big houses. So this kind of was my book, so I think I went through the experience that young people are experiencing that, and did all this kind of stuff, worked really hard on it. There's a whole proud of the gender book is done well. And is in like in a kind of in a small way that is used. It was done by a small publisher. There is this felt it was a commercial. They weren't going to sell as many. Literally, I spoke to agents and said, I spoke to agents that gay work, and they were like, "This is amazing. It's a great gay book." But it's too Latino. Our gay readership is white, male, and they need to see themselves, make the boyfriend a white kid, and then I'll be interested. I was like, that's a different book. So then to Latino agents, oh my God, the culture of the food, all that. But it's almost too gay.
Is that right?
I don't know if Latinos are ready for that. It starts to make sense. You get put in this invisible place, right? And so my book does thank our heads around, so then we have different platforms to get it out there. But ultimately, it's publishing, it's the distribution, right? It's the attention that major publications give to books that make these stories more visible. So my community knows it does create that in my book. There's clearly pressure. I remember once it's hard watching on that community, and that's what the visibility watching. So that's what the
community doesn't even know about my work because I wasn't interested in writing about specifically lesbian issues. I want to write about what's universal, but I'd like some of those characters to be lesbian. So we just expand the dialogue. So the theaters.
I mean, to clarify, see, remember
somebody at a theater in Houston said, I've got all these little sandwiches on my board. There's no way they're going to have a
so this is just to make people aware that the fact
just happens to be the
fluidity is frightening. Because it is uncertain.
That you don't
know where you belong.
Okay, so this is one thing that drives me crazy with that kind of stuff.
Human
because
mind
all right, so I just say this: a
order,
writer's color more evolved
so
because we
Excel
can see
sheets are so
ourselves in our work.
delightful.
A queer writer's more evolved.
But the
human
thing
being
is,
because we can see
and that's
ourselves
where
in
the
other
problem
work,
comes.
and they
While
can't
the
see
philosophy
themselves in
will
our
always
work, and it's not
fluidity,
universal.
the
We're writing about love, we're
day-to-day
writing about relations, we're writing about all
has
these
rules,
things,
and that's where the problem
are they that
starts.
stupid, or we just that evolved?
So in
That's
India,
what
this
gets me.
whole thing is about
we just
marriage.
haven't had to.
It's not so much about sexuality. So a boy comes comes out
go
and
to
says,
movies
I'm
all
gay,
the
it's
time
fine.
and
Mother says,
imagine
how is that
themselves
stopping you
as
from
the,
getting married?
as the Bruce Willis character.
Marriage is
Because
important.
that's
What you do outside, I don't want to know. So they will entertain the
movies
boyfriend
with
in the
women
house and
leads
talk to both of them
and
about
go,
who get
there's-
married.
that's about a woman.
Or if a lesbian couple is, I know so many.
So your
actors
answer is
who say
yes,
lesbians,
nonetheless
they're
involved.
out there with their
Right.
families.
Well,
And
it's
I
just the
told them,
luxury of not having to do that, so you're not in practice.
Right.
But the,
And they
I was
don't
gonna
do each
say,
other.
the lesbian
Men
and
to
gay
men to
theaters,
produce children. They have no problem. Here there's the lesbian and the lover sitting. And everybody's talking, we're exchanging glances. And said, I know you're all Western educated people, you know.
issues.
But in our culture, we have marriage is important. See, they have no problem with the lesbian relationship.
Between
The problem is
at
they're
the
not getting
beginning
married.
of all
But then,
movements,
let me ask you, because I mean, what you're saying
have the
also,
urge to
you
familiarize
point
you
out
with the
Abrahamic
issues. I want to
mythology,
share what the issues
which
are
is based on judgment
and
Day,
the
is
wonders of
alien
dating.
to Indian mythology.
It is.
Yet you just want to change in rituals, pulse on how questions we're going to have. Trump.
Oh, please, do ask questions.
I was hoping someone would interrupt, but
idea.
please, for Abrahamic mythology, which is that not what fundamentally you're doing for societal
So it's
pressures?
addressed to,
What can be done about
three
it?
of the panelists, but I'd like to
I know, I mean, things change over time. And nothing, I don't think anything needs to be done. I think awareness automatically changes things. So long as you get more and more aware of things, people's ideas also shift. We do not respect people's ability to love.
And
I think everybody does.
I
It just
would
takes
like to
time. Some
ask
people
all three of
take
you,
several generations. I come from a culture where you live for
what
many
your
lives.
thoughts are on,
So there's no hurry.
we talk about gender
But what about oppression? Oppression, we haven't
There is.
discussed.
So, for example, in India, if you're a hijra,
those prejudices
transgender,
and
traditional
another kind of
transgender, they are
prejudice,
marginalized
racial,
communities. They exist, but they are marginalized. They're not
prejudices
mainstream.
against immigrants.
Although they have one,
Something
recently
we
there
just
was,
heard in the
you must have
panel
heard of the
before
Kumbh
this
Mela,
lunch.
the
Because
large
when we were
gatherings of
talking, it
sages.
seemed to me
So
that,
one of the transgender, very
the
political, she said, I'm going to start a
is so
transgender
similar.
monastic order.
And, you know, when
And that's like a very
also
funny
through-
thing.
Through your
But-
plays or your books.
Because I know the person, I'm like,
it's,
monastic
overall
order, you?
awareness, but I'd like to hear
It's
your thoughts on
okay.
whether you...
But it was so successful. Millions of people, they just gathered to take their blessings. So here you have a transgender in India. The government of India provides them toilets. So there is no issues of toilets, transgender toilets. Because I'm frightened, and she's dressed in her finery, and
you in my space.
ordinary Indians
Terrifying.
falling at their feet and asking
the
for
way
blessings
human mind
because they
works.
see them as manifestations of the divine.
For me,
So the court, Supreme
it's a
Court,
two-way
with all its
process.
educated
If I'm
lawyers, finds
sensitive
it
to the
difficult
fact
to
that I'm
handle it,
frightened,
but the
I
average
don't
guy
frighten
doesn't.
you more. But
So
I
you find these
gently
dichotomy
nudge
in the
you
culture. So
towards
you
not
just have to
being
search for these
frightened,
keywords and
which automatically
me
leads you to
But
accept
these things
it.
also happen. So they coexist in
That's
the
a
country.
conversation.
So as I said, you have
Complex
lesbian partners and the parents discussing
Doesn't
whether to
happen
get married to men.
But
Which is like incredible, and you have transgender akhadas where people are falling at their feet and seeing them as manifestations of the divine, but they will not get a job in any corporate.
Poetry. Well, you know, I think maybe my Puerto
temples are
Rican
all
mother
about that.
may have been a
It's,
little Indian because when I had a
and
boyfriend, she said that,
understanding of
suggested to
human
me,
fear.
why don't you move together and marry women?
And I think that is the one
Charles, could we hear a little
Why
change on that? I think it's
Sure.
probably
What
a good
benefit
point
do
to
I get
hear just a
by
little bit
being-
of that.
And I just want to say one little
If I
tiny
understand
thing
the
about
benefit,
oppression, because you asked
and I
said, what about
understand that
oppression?
fear,
And
my
and,
conversation
you know, it's
is very
covert
different.
and like overt
I
oppression
approach it
sometimes. And I
differently.
think when
So
you're talking about
when I'm writing, for example, I'll give you an example
you
of
know,
mainstreaming.
the
I
average
consult
guy
a lot
not
of
having an
television
issue
shows,
with
and
it.
so I have
And I think of being here in the
influences
United
from
States, and we
places.
get
Try
a
to
mixed
do
message.
gay
Like I grew up
characters in
also,
very
part of a
mainstream
little tiny
settings.
piece of my life was being
The thing is,
like
in
a
Indian
born-again Christian
television and
fundamentalist,
soaps, you
because,
cannot
I was trying not to be gay.
show intimate
So,
scenes.
and
You
I
can't show
always
scenes.
remember
It's not
the
allowed.
idea
It's not
of
permitted
like,
by the sensible. So how do you
hate
show a gay
the sin,
man?
not the sinner.
Because two men holding
Right?
hands is
And so
perfectly
that always
fine
like
in India.
messed with my head because I was like, how can
But
you
if I don't show
separate
them kissing,
the two? I'm
how
not
do I
one
show it's an
person.
erotic
So
relationship?
that's
So
another
when you
way
do
I
this,
felt oppressed.
the audience
So
just didn't
the
get
part
it.
of me that I wanted to embrace was
You see,
being able to know how to
such nice boys,
So,
what's the problem?
read just a little bit. So
the problem I face is very strange. So I've got many opportunities
queer
to
history,
show
writing, all that
gay,
stuff.
lesbian
But one of the ways
characters.
to kind of
The
do
audience
it is, I like
doesn't
writing
get
about
it.
like my community.
So
I like
you-
writing about the Bronx. I like writing about
Because you
queerness,
just don't
Latino,
get it, and
I think
so
in
you-
terms of adding that,
unless
but it's
I have
also
to now
like
show
letting
them
people
tearing
into
each other's
stories.
clothes,
So
that's not gonna
have
happen
people been
on
to the Bronx
television.
here? Any people
So
been to the Bronx?
you have to
Okay,
be
so
patient.
good.
We
Like
have a
maybe
time
20,
constraint.
30
Sorry,
people
Jane.
been to the Bronx.
It
The
Reminds
rest
me a
of
little
you
bit.
can come
I
along
had a
in this
script
book
that was
to the
done by
Bronx.
Showtime called
Also
Freak City.
into, it's not
And
only the borough,
it was
but
about
also
the
like
friendship
culture,
between
into
5 people in a care
the
center for the
language,
disabled.
what it looks like. So I'm going to
And,
read just a little bit of it.
they
So
wanted me
Shanice's
to
a book
add
about
a sex
16-year-old, kind of a tough kid.
And, well, first of all, I just always felt like, oh God, Hollywood. It's a screenplay about friendship, and they want a sex scene. I'm not going to do it. And then my mom calls me up and says, "Oh, I think it's important
So I'm going to read you a
that
tiny
people
little
know
moment.
that handicapped people have
They
sex."
kind of
So my
get
mom
away
talked
from
me
the
into writing a
neighborhood.
sex scene,
Neighborhood.
but it
They
was
go to another part
the
of the
lead
story.
character was in a
When Chilito
wheelchair,
arrived at
and her
Boulder,
boyfriend was
the northwest The
quadriplegic.
setting sun was putting up a
was
fight
a
to
little
find the
bit
right
like-
ways of
a little
heat,
similar.
of hot light.
They're gonna run a
Everything was
sex scene with
orange,
a
the majestic
quadriplegic.
oak trees,
Charles.
young
Well,
guys breakdancing
all
on the
I'm just
benches,
gonna say
the
is
gazebo,
just simply
the Art Deco
to also
buildings on the
compliment,
Grand
what
Concourse,
Debbie was
and the
saying.
poet Edgar Allan Poe's
in
cottage
addition
to the north end, for which
fear
the
is
park
also
was
power
named.
in terms of prejudice.
Carlos
So that
sat
thinking
there,
of that element
blazed
as
in
well.
bright creamy
That there's always this element
as he
of
sat on
someone
the
who wants
bench,
to be power
chin resting on his
over
left
the
knee.
next person.
He was reading
So,
a book, eating an apple.
I feel like
his hair had
that's
fallen
just
into his
intertwined
face.
in all of that.
Chilito watched for a moment,
One more question?
and then by instinct, Carlos looked up. Chilito waved,
Can
"Yo,
you
what's
have
up?"
my mic too?
"Hey, Chilito,"
I won't
Carlos
choose, I'll
smiled,
let the mic
closed his
lady
book, took one
very
last bite of the
kindly
apple
choose.
before tossing it into the garbage can.
We are very short of
Exchange,
time,
he
so
takes it
please,
inside of the
very
very
strict.
My question is, there was a gender acceptability on the older days
So
based on the pictures.
Carlos walked over,
When,
he goes in and checks
when
out
it was
the
washed out
cottage,
and why it was washed out.
and looks at things, and then he walks over
It's
to
you're
a
talking-
window. So
the
Carlos
question
walked
to
over to an
me,
ornate floor
so,
lamp and pulled the cord. The dim
It's
light it gave was no
speculative, we
match
don't
to
know,
the
but
setting
there's a
sun.
very
It
famous
was fine
line,
to the eye.
I'm trying to
Carlos
remember
went to
this
his
line.
window. The pattern of the lace
It
curtains
says
made
that
it
the,
look as
the
if his face
Mughals,
were tattooed.
the Mongol
Chilito
warriors
smiled
came
at
to
the
India
thought
dressed
Carlos
in
could
leather
be a college
pants.
student,
And when the British came and exiled
What are you
them,
smiling
they
at?
left in silk petticoats.
Nothing. Well, the curtains look
So
like
Indian culture has
whatever.
always been
He said,
seen as
trailing
highly
off into a
feminizing,
separate joke.
and
What?
it is the
Nothing.
spirit of the
Check out that
religion.
sun.
It is
It's
highly
almost gone.
feminine.
Chilito
And
walked over
one of the
and
things
stood
which
by
happened
him.
during the colonial
He felt
rule
the heat
is
in the already hot
the
room rise
colonizers
about 20
shamed
degrees.
India for being feminine.
Carlos turned his head to look
And
at
you were
Chilito.
continuously
They were
shamed
about
for
2
being
inches
feminine.
away from each other.
And therefore, even
Chilito
today, you
imagined
see
himself
the
jumping
extreme
back saying, "Yo,
fundamentalist movement
you're
is
invading
trying
my
to
space, bro."
masculinize
But instead, he
and
stood
reject
there,
the feminine
staring into
traditions
Carlos's
of India.
eyes, feeling the
And
heat of
there's
the
a
sun,
very,
the heat
and
of
therefore the
moon,
queer
and the
traditions
heat
of
from
India.
Carlos's body.
So there's a pushback
Thank you,
against
Chilito.
all things
I
feminine.
thought you'd like it.
And therefore,
I
when
love
you
it.
start,
Chilito
even
thought
when you
that he
tell
should be
stories,
turning away
the
at that moment,
tonality
but he
of Indian
He
storytelling
should
is
be
very
putting up and
feminine.
putting on the brakes.
So
because
when I
we
start
knew
telling
this was
stories,
heavy.
and even when I
But
do it
he
in
didn't.
English, my body
He should have
language
been doing
changes,
a lot
my
of things, but
movements
instead,
change.
he leaned forward
You
and closed a
have to
small
be
gap of
feminine
space
to get
between
it.
them.
If
And
you
their
really
lips
want to
met.
get into the
They
mysteries,
kissed
you
gently
have
at
to
first, almost as if their lips were accidentally
But that
bumping
shift
into
is
each
not
other.
because this
Then the small kisses grew longer.
glamorous
Carlos slipped his
valorization of
tongue into
masculinity
Chilito's mouth.
has sort of
Their
now
tongues
become a
swirled slowly
political
one over the
discourse.
other,
That's
and
not just
Chilito
in
could
India,
taste
globally.
the apple.
Thank you.
That
3
happened
minutes
to me.
left. I'm sorry,
It was the
Devdutt.
sweetest
One
taste.
more quick question. Who wants it? Thank you, Charles.
Let me just,
Sorry.
while you're looking,
Okay.
so also here in the United
Can we leave it
States,
there?
we could leave it there,
I'm
right?
sorry.
Tasting an apple on a
It's going to be brutal everywhere I cut it. Believe me, you need to read the whole book.
But I just wanted to share some of his, you can kind of hear some of the language come into the Bronx. And also, one of the elements of I think religion, Jane said, and also Devdutt said, you know, at the base of all of this, we're bringing these ideas into them, and they were free to
Thank you
love.
very much, Charles Rice-Gonzalez. Now, Jane, you've got literally a minute to that, and you've had Devdutt. And I know
Hello everyone, so my question is to you.
that you say
This
as
is
a
not
woman
in Indian
playwright,
context,
you're
divine
from
and
1985 to
our daily routine
2008.
intertwined.
You paid a
When
high
you
price
saw that
for
Ardhanarishwar,
writing
concept of
meaty
Shiva and
central
Shakti,
roles
when
of
they
women and
manifest into
lesbians.
real lives,
No one
we have
objected to
Shaivites,
it.
we have Durga
Commercial
followers,
producers
but
simply
in
invisible
Ardhanarishwar concept,
my work.
when it
We've
comes
asked all
to
three of you
the
this.
combination of the two,
To
we have,
what
as
extent,
you said, Hitras.
you know,
Without their
have
blessings,
we been
no ritual
prepared
ceremony
to
is
do
complete in our
any-
homes. But
three
when
of
they
you,
are
time has
manifested,
not
the
been
problem of
to invisible
acceptance comes.
your
We
work.
accept
It's
Shiva,
what
Durga,
Jane said they
but
did
in
to her work. They
our
didn't produce it, they
day-to-day
just
routine,
invisible it.
acceptance is not at the
So
level of
what
our
price of
teenagers.
any of
So
you
what
had
do you
to be
think
done?
are the
Have you
cultural
had to
barriers
pay a
in
price? You
Indian
talk about
context that
the
have
third
are
possibilities in
progressive?
India. Perhaps
Yes,
it
it is
includes the
really
price.
quite
Has it been a price? Sorry, I don't know how you're going to do that.
Well,
Jane, I want to ask you first because you
because
coined
we
the
have
term.
still to discover love, the God. When we
Yeah.
discover love,
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Devdutt
well,
Pattanaik, Jane Shepard.
Does anybody have like a really
one
quick
minority
question that they're
playwright said to
wondering,
me,
but it
"Oh
seems
my
too
God,
stupid to ask?
We're in the ghetto.
Because those are
Any
always
more
the like the
questions?
ghetto.
Yes, please.
The girl Grant ghetto, where our plays were workshopped and our plays were read, and the black and Latino and gay and
Or something like that.
And Asian
Because you're not queer.
plays were the plays that,
You're just
that made
different.
theaters look good because
Very
they could say
powerful,
on their
Stephen,
grand
and forgive me,
applications,
but they're very
yes,
tight
we
here, and I will
workshopped
get in
and
trouble.
read
I don't
these
like that.
minorities.
Thank you very much.
And they looked good, and then when they were ready to produce, it was the same old traditional work. It was just really tricky to see because nobody was talking about it. And it's just beginning to be talked about in New York, that there's not much presence of women or lesbians on Broadway, off-Broadway. So it took years to get anybody to sort of legitimize my experience. And it was sort of like looking at a painting and having to judge to understand the painting by looking at the empty space rather than where the paint was. And the paint was white men's work, and mine must be the empty space because it can win grants and awards and workshops. But no one says, that's fantastic, let's take it to production. The experience was much more common to say, that's a wonderful play, I wish you the best of luck with it. It's not something our theater can produce.
Thank you, Jane. Devdutt, being invisible.
Well, honestly, I've not experienced that because I write on mythology. I'm aware of prejudice. I'm aware, but I have not experienced it in this. In India, the prejudice is more in the private space than in the public space. So in the public space, everybody does the right thing. In the private space, the problems will start. So in a job situation, in a family situation, the tragedy is if you're born in a very affluent family, being queer is horrifying because your inheritance will be affected. So those kind of things will happen. So I have friends who are, very, very privileged even by American standards. And they are like, we cannot come out. No chance I'm going to get my father's money or the family business or a share of the family property. So, and the wife and the woman, so that's the private space. But in the public space, I have not faced any problems, honestly, because, my books sell well. So commerce wins. And I love commerce, so I sort of work very hard to make sure that they make so much money that they cannot say no to the gay person.
That's good.
Charles, thank you, Devdutt. Charles, you also, in this question of oppression, I think you've flipped it because you talk about how LGBTQ literature in the US has served markers for progression. That is positive, that is not oppression. And you talk about how they give the whole contributions of queer, Latino and writers of color give a broader picture of life. So that is not even admitting oppression is a possibility, is that right?
Well, I'm going to answer the invisible question, right?
Yeah.
So one of the ways, right, once I went to a panel on, that was talking about, the title was, Where's the Lesbian Giovanni's Room, right? Because they considered Baldwin's Giovanni's Room to be groundbreaking, where's the lesbian one? And one of the things that we talked about it was that maybe it was written, but it just was never published, right? So that's one of the ways we got invisible, right? And that was one of why the Quill was trying to do. They were trying to say we need to get published by big houses, right? But even with my book, Cholito, I went through went to Bread Loaf, met agents, did all this kind of stuff, worked really hard on it. Proud of the book. The book is done well, in a kind of in a small way, because it was done by a small publisher. The large ones felt it was a commercial. They weren't gonna sell as many. Literally, I spoke to agents that did gay work, and they were like, "This is amazing. It's a great gay book, but it's too Latino. Our gay readership is white, male, and they need to see themselves. Make the boyfriend a white kid, and then I'll be interested." I was like, "That's a different book." So then to Latino agents, oh my God, the culture of the food, but it's almost too gay. I don't know if Latinos are ready for that. So in a sense, you get put in this invisible place, right? And so my book does thank God for social media, so we have different platforms to get it out there. But ultimately, it's publishing, it's the distribution, right? It's the attention that major publications give to books that make these stories more visible. So my community knows about my book. They buy my book, they've read my book, but it's hard moving beyond that community, and that's where the visibility needs to be. So that's what the
My
oppression
community
is.
doesn't even know about my work because I wasn't interested in writing about specifically lesbian issues. I want to write about what's universal, but I'd like some of those characters to be lesbian. So we just expand the dialogue. So the theaters, I mean, somebody at a theater in Houston said, you know, I've got all these old Texas dowagers on my board. There's no way they're going to do a play with a major lesbian character, which just happened to be the year they did Quills, which
That, you know, but that's part of the, you know, what, okay, so
Yeah.
this is one thing that drives me crazy with that kind of stuff. Because, all right, so I just say this, are writers of color more evolved because we can see ourselves in other work? Are queer writers more evolved human beings because we can see ourselves in other work and they can't see themselves in our work and it's not universal? You know, we're writing about love, we're writing about relations, we're writing about all these things, and I'm like, are they that stupid, or are we just that evolved? That's what gets me crazy.
we just haven't had to, you know. Women go to movies all the time and imagine themselves as the Bruce Willis character or whatever, because that's the lead. But men go to movies with women in the leads and kind of go, well, that's about a woman, but they're not going to imagine themselves. Anyway,
So
I
your
was
answer is
gonna say-
yes, men are less evolved, right?
Well,
That's
it's
what you
just
just
a
talked about.
luxury of not having to do that, so you're
Right.
not in practice.
Right.
But I was going to say, the lesbian and gay theaters will not produce my work and have not supported my films because they weren't about specifically gay issues. So it was kind of fallen in between. Because at the beginning of all movements, minorities have the urge to familiarize you with the issues. They want to share what the issues are and the wonders of dating.
I just want to check pulse on how many questions we're going to have.
Oh, please, do ask questions.
I was hoping someone would interrupt, but please, ma'am. Sorry, Edith. I nearly knocked you out, dear.
So it's addressed to all three of the panelists, but I'd like to quote Devdutt Pattanaik on what you said. I wrote it down. It just affected me. You said the inability to let people be reflects our inability to love, and I would like to ask all three of you what your thoughts are on, you know, we talk about gender prejudices and you know, prejudices against LGBTQ. What do you think are the similarities and differences between those prejudices and another kind of prejudice like racial prejudices or prejudices against immigrants? You know, something we just heard in the panel before lunch. Because when you were talking, it seemed to me that you know, the problem is so similar. And you know, whether we address it through your plays or your books, you know, I think it's an overall awareness. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on whether you think about those similarities and differences.
So, see, prejudice is just an expression of fear. I'm frightened, and because I'm frightened, I isolate and insulate myself, and I don't want you in my space because you terrify me. And that's the way human mind works. For me, it's a two-way process. If I'm sensitive to the fact that you're frightened, I will not frighten you more. But I will gently nudge you towards not being frightened, which automatically leads you to accepting me. And that's a conversation which is a complex conversation. It doesn't happen easily, but it's a two-way process. And it is dealing with human fear. And it manifests itself in literature, in writing, in poetry. The temples are all about that. It's an understanding of human fear. And I think that is the one thing that needs to be addressed. Why are we prejudiced? What benefit do I get by being prejudiced? And if I understand that benefit and I understand that fear, my conversation is very different. I approach it differently. So when I'm writing, for example, I'll give you an example of mainstreaming. I consult a lot of television shows, and so I have influence in some places, and you try to do gay characters in very mainstream soaps. The thing is, in Indian television, in soaps, you cannot show intimate scenes. You can't show kissing. It's not allowed. It's not permitted by the censor board. So how do you show a gay man? Because two men holding hands is perfectly fine in India. But if I don't show them kissing, how do I show it's an erotic relationship? So when you do this, the audience just didn't get it. You say, such nice boys, what's the problem? So the problem I face is very strange. So I've got many opportunities to show gay, lesbian characters. The audience doesn't get it. So you, because you just don't get it. And so you know, sort of, unless I have to now show them tearing each other's clothes, that's not going to happen on television. So you have to be patient.
We have a time constraint. I'm sorry, Jane.
It reminds me a little bit, I had a script that was done by Showtime called Freak City. And it was about the friendship between 5 people in a care center for the disabled. And they wanted me to add a sex scene. And, well, first of all, I just felt like, oh God, Hollywood, it's a screenplay about friendship and they want a sex scene, I'm not gonna do it. And then my mom calls me up and says, well, I think it's important that people know that handicapped people have sex. So my mom talked me into writing a sex scene, but it was, the lead character was in a wheelchair and her boyfriend was quadriplegic. It was a little bit like, a little similar. They're going to write a sex scene with a quadriplegic guy.
Charles.
Well, I'm just going to say, just simply to also compliment what Deborah was saying. In addition to fear, it's also power in terms of prejudice. So that thinking of that element as well, that there's always this element of power, like someone who wants to be powerful over the next person. So I feel like that's just intertwined in all of that. So.
One more question. You can get the mic too. I won't choose, I'll let the mic lady very kindly choose. We are very short of time, so please, they're very strict.
My question is, there was a gender acceptability on the older days based on the pictures. When it was washed out and why it was washed out?
You're talking, the question is to me? See, it's speculative, we don't know, but there's a very famous line, I'm trying to remember who wrote this line. If you find it, please tell me. But it says that the Mongol warriors came to India dressed in leather pants. And when the British came and exiled them, they left in silk petticoats. So Indian culture has always been seen as highly feminizing, and it is the spirit of the religion, it is highly feminine. And one of the things which happened during the colonial rule is the colonizers shamed India for being feminine. And you are continuously shamed for being feminine. And therefore, even today, you see the extreme fundamentalist movement is trying to masculinize and reject the feminine traditions of India. And and therefore the queer traditions of India. So there's a pushback against all things feminine. And therefore, when you start, even when you tell stories, the tonality of Indian storytelling is very feminine. So even I start telling stories, and even when I do it in English, my body language changes, my movements change. You have to be feminine to get it. If you really want to get into the mysteries, you have to shift. But that shift is not, because this glamorous valorization of masculinity has sort of now become the political discourse. And I think not just in India, globally.
Thank you. 3 minutes left. I'm sorry, Devdutt. One more quick question. Who wants it?
Let me just, while you're looking, so also here in the United States, like, I know there's some folks invited from Pine Ridge, and I went there, and I asked them the question, because in New York City we heard of the idea of two-spirited communities in Native American, they were honored, and I asked that question, like, what happened? And they said something similar, is the influence of the United States, religion and culture on the Indian culture, and the Native American were bringing these ideas into them, and that flip was happening there as well, they were being shamed.
Got literally a minute.
I'll be first. Hello everyone. So my question is to you. This is that in Indian context, divine and our daily routine intertwines. I saw that Ardhanarishwar, the concept of Shiva and Shakti, when they manifest into real lives, we have Shaivites, we have Durga followers, but in Ardhanarishwar concept, when it comes to the combination of the two, we have as you said, hijras. Without their blessings, no ritual ceremony is complete in our homes. But when they are manifested, the problem of acceptance comes. We accept Shiva, Durga, but in our day-to-day routine, acceptance is not at the level of our Narishwars. So what do you think are the cultural barriers in Indian context that hampers our progress?
This is a concluding point, I'm afraid. Sorry, I don't know how you're going to do that.
Well, because we have still to discover love, the gods. When we discover it, it'll all fall in place.
Thank you very much, Devdutt Pattanaik, Jane Shepard.
Does anybody have like a really quick question that they're wondering, but it seems too stupid to ask? Because those are always the questions that. Yes, please.
And it's probably just that you can see I'm white, I'm middle class, and my age. But I wish you wouldn't call yourselves queer. I mean, can't we have him, her, and us, or something like that? Because you're not queer.
I'm going to leave it there.
You're just different.
That's very powerful to leave on, and you'll forgive me, but they're very tight here, and I will get in trouble. I don't like that. Thank you very much.